We can now officially project that the Democrats will take control of the House. As we said at the start of the night, they needed to pick up 23 seats to get over the magic number of 218. They've done it. Right now, we're told they are at 229, Chuck. So now it's a matter of measuring their margin of victory.
There's no doubt. But let's just take a second here to realize fourth straight midterm election where at least one chamber has flipped. That has not happened in this country since the 30s and 40s. And what was that? Depression, World War II, massive changes. You had a new generation coming in, all of these things. We are in the middle of one of the things that I think we have to accept is we're in the middle of this massive political realignment, and we're trying to figure this stuff out every 2 years. Things are in the middle of shifting, which is why we've had this volatility. I mean,
Republicans had held the House for 8 years.
They had, but if you look at it, every 4 years in the midterms so far, starting in 06, there has been a flip of the House or the Senate or both. 06, 10, 14, and now 18. That is major volatility in American politics.
You're seeing a lot of women. A lot of these flipped races for Democrats were women. Some of the women candidates, they had this very big field, military backgrounds, younger. This is a new generation coming into the House.
And it is being done through the suburbs. This is being done. This is not them winning red states. This is not a red districts. This is them winning Clinton districts.
So what's the message?
The House terrain was much more favorable for Democrats.
What's the message for Democrats then? Run far to the left or run as centrist? I mean,
that's very mixed.
Very, very where you run.
It depends very much where you run. I do think there has been, it's very clear there is a push for authenticity. Voters want candidates who are authentic. And I think for Democrats, that does often mean on the progressive side. But let's also not lose sight. I mean, we're very obviously into the vote counts and just by how many Democrats are going to control the House. The fact that we have called control of the House hands power to Democrats in Washington in a way that is going to define the next 2 years of covering the Trump presidency.
Walk us through the practicalities of Democrats now controlling the House.
The most important piece is subpoena power. And it was little noticed at the time, but when Republicans controlled the House this last go-round, they actually made it so they didn't have to consult with the minority if they wanted to issue a subpoena. It was largely overlooked at the time. Democrats, complained about it at the time, but it's a classic case of, what goes around comes around.
Well, this is just to really define our terms. You're talking about Democrats who will have control of chairmanships, then be able to have the power to investigate, and as part of that power to investigate, it's the power to subpoena, which is the power for Congress to compel testimony or documents.
Exactly. Or tax returns, for example, that the president has not released.
I mean, just compare Devin Nunes, who was, as no other intelligence chair has ever been, the handmaiden of the White House. It's always been an independent, bipartisan committee. He completely politicized it for the President of the United States, including that midnight run to find secret information, which was then misreported. Now he would get replaced by Adam Schiff, a former prosecutor and someone who has been leading the charge against Donald Trump. So that is the strongest comparison.
Kasie.
Also, Elijah Cummings replaces Trey Gowdy on House oversight.
Does Nancy Pelosi have the votes? I mean, I think that's the question of the moment.
Is Nancy Pelosi going to be Speaker?
Does she have the votes?
There is no alternative to Nancy Pelosi as the Speaker right now. And whether or not she has a major problem on the floor of the House, we don't know the answer to that question yet. Chuck, we need to see the rest of these results. The general consensus has been, among my sources, that if this majority is less than 10, then she, as in they have a margin that's less than 10, then yeah, she could potentially have a problem. But there is a sense, and Nancy Pelosi's people have been working very hard behind the scenes to try and make sure that this path was going to be smooth. They think that there is a far lower number of hardcore anti-Pelosi people than candidates who have said that they have trouble voting for her. And also remember, the process, and this is all going to play out, it's a little more complicated than people understand. So you can do something on the floor. You can vote present, which would potentially save some of these Democrats who've already said that they were going to vote against her, and then their votes wouldn't count. So that may save her a little bit.
But back up a minute. The idea there's no one else out there.
Yeah.
It means there's no one that anyone could coalesce around, or?
There's nobody that anyone could coalesce around. There's nobody that actually knows how to do the job of Speaker. So to take you back to one of the upsets this year, when Joe Crowley lost that primary election to Ocasio-Cortez, he was somebody, he's 20 plus years younger than Nancy Pelosi, but he had spent time in leadership. He understood what it took. There's nobody else that has the knowledge right now to undertake the job.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here. And click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.